At least during the interview that you had with her on June 19th, can you give me any specific information as to what she said that may have been odd, or to kind of back up these hallucinations that you're testifying about?
When I asked her about auditory visual hallucinations, she began to describe different, hearing a train whistle that got progressively louder during the interview. And it sounded like, it seemed from her point of view, that she was actually seeing a train. At one point, towards the end of the 2 hours, that became so prominent that she, was very, very distracted about it. She does have some coping strategies for how to deal with that, like when she's in the courtroom and other times. So she described that. Yeah, sometimes I can repress that and control it. She reported what we call command hallucinations that tell her to do things for herself, attack people, and she said most of the time she can control that. She said at one point that regarding the train, she just, again, a real tangent, she said that Johnny Cash died on the train. I think the most, well, I do know, not I think, I know, the most weirdest thing she said at the point where I was assessing her knowledge about how to act in court, since there's obviously been some problems, this became really bizarre because she talked about the incident of exposing herself in court, and she indicated that she did it to get the judge to like her. And then at that point, I asked you, her attorney, to describe courtroom behaviors. And she said, again, I have those statements in my report. I don't know if you want me to, just look here just a minute here, give me a minute here. This was one of the more, and this is where I concluded that she lacks the insight and judgment and the mental capacity to understand the proceedings. I asked her about, I was going through the plea options with her, and by the way, even though I was doing an NGI evaluation, I assessed competency to proceed to trial in all of my forensic evaluations. If they're just for NGI, I still evaluate the person for competency, doesn't matter. So I was asking her about the plea options. Again, she gave some on-track answers. But when I asked her about what the NGI plea means, she said titties. And I asked her some follow-up questions about what's appropriate courtroom behaviors. She said, show titties in court to judge. And I'm citing, reading from my page 6 here of my evaluation. She recalled doing that in the courtroom, and she hoped it would help the judge's opinions now. That was one of the most unusual things. I asked her about when she told me about that she had been diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, age 11 or 12, treated with Adderall. She thought that if she's angry in court, so this is where I was trying to assess her ability to work with you, Mr. Freilich. She thought if she was angry in future court appearances and she cannot understand what is going on, she can ask Mr. Freilich, who will, quote, tap his toes. I asked her about the attack on Mr. Jolly in the courtroom and what her thoughts were at the time. She said, and there's numerous other references. The weird thing that when I briefly discussed the current legal charges with her, she said that she had a thing with Jeffrey Dahmer about a year ago, and just on and on. There were just numerous of these strange comments about Johnny Cash being on the train. She went further into her tangential thoughts about the train, how loud his whistle was, and how Johnny Cash overdosed, apparently, on a train. And so there were numerous examples of that. Those are some of the most prominent ones.
Were you, as part of your evaluation, did you talk to her about alcohol or drug use or abuse?
Yes.
And can you tell me a little bit about your discussions with her on those topics, and then any opinions that you had about that?
Yeah, let me just find it here. She, in my evaluation, and then regarding previous evaluators, she is fairly consistent about it, and I don't have the exact years written down, but she began to use some drugs after her mother's death when Miss Schabusiness was in 5th grade. I think THC. She has said she's never been a big drinker of alcohol, but then started to use, she used LSD a couple times, I think in high school or shortly thereafter, but then began to use methane or cocaine, powder cocaine, sometime, and again, I'd have to look through, find the dates or how old she was. She started using powder cocaine sometime, I think, after high school, and then methamphetamine, and along with THC and other drugs, maybe in her early 20s.
Did she indicate to you that she used lots of methamphetamine?
Yes. And sometimes she has said that she, could use it 8, 9 times in a day sometimes. And then I think, actually, I think it was more around 2020, because her husband, she told us, or she told me, that her husband was a meth dealer, currently in prison, and that she started to use methamphetamine a lot around in 2020. And she's had some drug treatment, but then left. She didn't finish drug treatment.
Did she describe how the methamphetamine would make her feel?
Yes, and this is unusual, a little counterintuitive, but she said it made her, that methamphetamine was the only thing that helped her thinking and brought her down enough to be able to think clearly. And interestingly, sometimes in a person with a psychotic mental disorder, sometimes the illegal substance has a paradoxical effect. I've encountered this in a couple other evaluations. I kind of give an example of a person with attention deficit disorder with Adderall, which is the stimulant prescribed to treat ADHD, which she does have, and has been prescribed Adderall in the past. And Adderall is a stimulant, and so you wonder, why would you want somebody who has attention deficit hyperactivity to be more stimulated? It has a paradoxical effect with people who have ADHD, and it actually helps them to be less agitated, less up. Well, similarly, with people with a psychotic mental disorder, sometimes a stimulant drug like methamphetamine can act, or LSD, I've encountered this in a handful of other cases where the person with a psychotic mental disorder, this is very similar to what Ms. Schabusiness has reported. Sometimes the drug, methamphetamine, can actually help them with their problems with thinking, feeling real hyper, not being able to get things together. Sometimes can help them, and sometimes they use vast quantities of it to help with that. You know, again, it's a form of self-medication, but it can have a paradoxical effect, and that's what she has described to other treaters, that the use of methamphetamine, she didn't want to take antipsychotic prescribed medication, but she has stated that she took the methamphetamine to help with her thinking, and it was the only thing that helped, she said.
Did she tell you that when she took methamphetamine, it made her feel like she was floating in air?
Yes, and she told me that, but then she has told other evaluators that too.